Welcome everyone to our first ever community call. Thank you so much for joining and the constant support and love you provide to the project. I'm Swapnil Ammane, and with me today I'm having the team behind Webiny. So let's get started. So the agenda for today's call is we will first talk about the new storage layer, our brand new DynamoDB-only version that makes Webiny 100% serverless. So our CTO and co-founder Pavel will talk about the storage layer. Then we will open up for the questions if you have any on this new storage layer. Then our head of product and technical sales, Pedro, will talk about the product roadmap, what we are currently doing and what we are visioning for a few months and next year for the product. And then we will have a very quick poll. We have a couple of questions for you, which you can help us to give some feedback on. And then we will open up the forum for the question. You can ask us any question related to Webiny or related to serverless and can share your feedback, thoughts, anything which you'd like to share with us. Some quick thoughts. Please keep yourself on mute when speakers are deleting sessions. And then and for questions, please feel free to use our chat. We will pick up the questions from there. And once we will open the forum for question and answer, you can definitely unmute yourself and ask the question there as well. So let's start with our new storage layer. Over to you, Pavel.
Yep, thanks, Swapnil. Hey everyone. So I'm sure you noticed last week we released our DynamoDB-only version of Webiny. Finally, we were eagerly awaiting that one. And we got lots of questions about, can I later upgrade to Elasticsearch, or can I downgrade or just switch my current system, which is on DynamoDB plus Elasticsearch? Can I switch it to just be DynamoDB only? So we thought, let's use this session and kind of describe of the whole thing about how storage layer works with Webiny, and it will answer all your questions regarding switching, storage, drivers, and things like that. So first, we need to take a step back and look at how traditionally systems handled storage layers. And probably just by looking at this diagram, you already know what I'm going to talk about. As soon as you see ORM, you will know that it has something to do with like relational mapping of your objects, your classes, your data to some kind of an abstraction and sitting on top of a database management system. So that's what we started with in Webiny version 4. I'm sure if you use Webiny version 4, you most likely remember the Komodo thing we had. It was an ODM, like an object document mapper. We wrote at Webiny to make use of MongoDB, and later we attempted to make it work with Dynamo, but it failed miserably because all kinds of abstractions are difficult to pull off, because every good tool like DynamoDB or Mongo or be it Cosmos DB or any database, they are good for their specific strengths. Any database can do basic CRUD operations. Any database can do a write, an insert, an update, and a delete. But as soon as you start going further and doing more complex stuff, that's where you want to really utilize those strengths or specialized storage features. For Dynamo, it may be GSIs and a completely different way of storing data. For MongoDB, you may be using like its aggregate functions, which are really crazy good, but there is no such thing in Dynamo, right? And not in SQL. So if you slap an abstraction layer on top of all those databases, you end up with having a create, read, update, delete set of operations, and you're done. Like that's what you get. And we were trying to make it work, but at the end we said enough is enough. It doesn't work. We cannot optimize, and we cannot make the best use of the tools we have available today if we keep trying to abstracting things away. So traditionally, applications would have their business logic, and then they would use an ORM to store data, to read it, and to delete it. And they would use some kind of query builders to write those basic operations. But then you reach the point where you say, okay, this is executing quite poorly and I need to make it faster. And then what happened is your business logic would contain custom SQL queries. Because usually ORMs are use some kind of a relational database underneath. So you would end up having your business logic mixed with custom SQL queries just to make it perform better. And it's unmaintainable. It defeats the purpose of even having an ORM. Why not go with plain SQL from the very beginning? So that is the traditional approach. When we started building this Webiny version 5, the one you're using today, we said, let's try a different approach. So we created this concept of a storage operations. Swapnil, if you can switch to the next slide, it will depict what we have today. So the Webiny approach of using storage in general is every application has a so-called storage operations like a driver. We can call it a driver. And it's replaceable and it's focused strictly on that application. So a file manager has a special set of methods or an interface you need to implement. And that layer can work with any database you want because business logic still sits in the application itself, but it is calling methods on this storage operations layer. That storage operations layer can then work with native storage like services, right? It can be DynamoDB, but we are not using an abstraction on top of that. We are literally using DynamoDB clients. So we can use all of the strengths of DynamoDB. For example, for page builder, you may say, MongoDB is a better option for me. I will need some kind of crazy statistics or whatever. And I may want to use MongoDB aggregation features. So you can say, okay, my file manager still works with DynamoDB, but my page builder will work with MongoDB. So in a sense, every application we have in Webiny, it's a standalone app. You will never be writing queries and doing crazy left joins or cross joins between file manager and page builder. So think of these apps as kind of a microservice of sorts. Even though they all live in the same Lambda function, they never intersect on the storage layer. And I just have MongoDB here as an example. We don't support MongoDB purely because it is not a serverless service yet. They do have plans and they're working on making it serverless. And when they do, we probably will revert back to it and maybe even consider implementing a storage for it, but it's not on the roadmap right now. So moving on, imagine a scenario where you need something really crazy like headless CMS, where you want to use DynamoDB because it's serverless, but then you need to have unpredictable access patterns because you can build dynamic content models. DynamoDB is all about knowing your access patterns. With headless CMS, you don't know your access patterns because you don't know the data users will be modeling. So you say, okay, I will use DynamoDB to store just store data, but for searching and filtering and all those kind of crazy full text search operations, I want to use Elasticsearch. So in traditional architecture, you would have your ORM storing data, but then in your business logic, you would have Elasticsearch slapped on top of it. And again, you end up with a mess. So with the way we structure our storage operations now, you can use 1 or 2 or 3 remote services to store your data, and you encapsulate it in storage operations. So at some point you may say, okay, this page builder here, like it's okay, it works fine, but I would like to experiment with a different storage. And you can just replace our existing package. It's a simple NPM package. You can just use a separate package which works with a different storage. It can be Cosmos DB or whatever you want. It can be a flat file stored in S3. So you can experiment by replacing bits and pieces, or even just grabbing the original implementation and wrapping it around your custom stuff and then setting it in. So it's really flexible, and it allows you to use all the specialized storage features. You no longer have to limit yourself on basic CRUD operations. You can pick what storage you want to use for a specific use case. So page builder may be a simple use case, but headless CMS can be more complex. So you may use a more specialized services to power that application. So this brings us a couple of benefits of easy experimenting with different implementations and just having different storage, even if we officially do not have a package for, let's say, MySQL, right? We don't. You may say, okay, I want to have MySQL and I want to use it for page builder. And then you just grab a TypeScript interface and you implement your storage layer yourself, and then just replace it in your GraphQL function setup, and it will just work. Because we just ask from your implementation to respect our interface, and that's all we care about. The cons of this approach is that there is more to maintain. You do have, I wouldn't say it's a copy, but it is an extra package, and you do have to, write more code, more setup code and stuff like that. And it's a lot more difficult to set up for testing. Like setting up Jest for page builder with 5 or 6 storage operation drivers is challenging. So on that front, it's a bit more difficult, but if you consider all the pros you get with it, I would say it's worth it. So that's kind of what we have today. And if we compare our 2 storage layers we provide today, they are not replaceable in place, in a sense that you cannot start a project using one storage layer and then in a month you decide, oh, I want to switch to Elasticsearch. You cannot do that. The reason is each one of these implementations they store data differently. They store data with all the limitations of each service in mind. So for DynamoDB, for example, you cannot filter by any field you want. You cannot sort by anything you like. You have to think in terms of which fields am I going to use for sorting, and then optimize your sort keys and stuff like that. So if you use that driver, it will store data in a certain way. If you just say, okay, my next project will be a bit more demanding and I will need Elasticsearch, then you just pick a different driver and you go with it from scratch, because that project will then store data entirely differently, because that implementation knows that it will have the luxury of Elasticsearch, and then we don't have to over-optimize stuff in Dynamo because we won't even be querying Dynamo. So those are the things that make these things not easily swappable. It's not hot swappable mid-project. You have to decide upfront. If you want to make migrations, it's possible. You would have to use so you cannot write database migrations. You would have to write scripts which use the API, use your API key, and then you fetch data from one system and use another endpoint and another API, and you insert that data back using GraphQL API, but then the storage layer will take care of storing it in the way that's appropriate for that storage layer. But you cannot just copy a DynamoDB table across and say, I'm done with my migration. It doesn't work that way. So that is to answer all the questions about downgrading to DynamoDB-only or upgrading later on. At some point, it will probably be possible with like out-of-the-box scripts that we may provide. But right now, the only way is use your API. Just query for data and insert it into the other system. And that's how you go about it. So yeah, I think I will stop here. And if there are any questions, we can tackle those right now.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for the details. So yeah, if anybody have questions, they can definitely use the chat, and also if they want, they can unmute themselves and can ask. So yeah, Ben, please go ahead.
I'm sorry about the music in the background, but Pavel, I wanted to ask about the import-export function you built into the headless CMS. Could you use that to move content into a different database, or would that not work? You have to do as you described.
Are you referring to that separate the examples repository where we have a script for export, or because we have import-export for page builder, not for CMS?
Ah, okay, my mistake. Yeah, okay. I was thinking of the page builder. Okay, don't worry.
Yeah, it's just for exporting pages, but it would work. I mean, if you just export pages and you upload that same zip into a different system with a different set of storage operations, it would still work, because it doesn't use the low-level storage itself, right? It just calls the public API, so it would work.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Super. Cool. So is there anybody else having the question? We'll wait for 10 to 15 seconds and then move on.
Yeah, we'll have another session for questions later on if somebody comes up with a question down the line. Yeah,
definitely. Cool. So, so if you have any question, definitely you can we have more to come, and you can ask later us as well. So this comes to me the next topic, which is our product roadmap. I'd like to invite Pedro to give our vision on this. So over to you, Pedro.
Thank you, Swapnil. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really couldn't be proud of what the team has achieved so far. I mean, Webiny is a great product, and I've certainly been as an outsider before joining Webiny. I was tinkering with the product a bit and getting to know the team a bit better, and they just did a phenomenal job so far. I mean, getting the product to what it is today, fully open source, self-hosted, 100% serverless again, as Pavel described earlier, is just remarkable. So kudos to the team, but I'm also super excited with what we're building next. I just wanted to start kind of by giving you guys a sense of how we make decisions about the roadmap. And there's kind of two vectors that kind of are the input to our roadmap decisions. The first one is, and they're both equally important, is feedback from you guys. So we want to believe that we built the product that you guys wanted, and we will continue to build the product that you guys want us to build. And that's for open source customers, but also for our enterprise customers. So that's kind of the first vector. The second vector is, of course, to do with our own set of beliefs and our identity as a company, and where we believe we need to be taking the product to market. Because there's broader and bigger problems for us to solve and help people out there. So this is to say that what you have here is our belief of what are the things that we need to build and bring to you guys through 2022. But this is not stuff that's set in stone, and you guys have the ability to influence what we're going to build. So keep that feedback coming, because we're going to continue to build the product that you guys want. I want to start by giving you guys a quick update on the things that we are working on at the moment. There's a lot of stuff that we do behind the scenes. I should also say that. I mean, we're constantly engaging with you guys on the community. We're addressing all of the issues you log on GitHub. So there's a lot of kind of smaller, still very important work that gets done during our product development cycles. These are more of kind of the big rocks, right? The game-changing features that we'll be bringing onto Webiny over the next months and years. I'll start with, again, what we're doing now. Webiny has been offering multi-tenancy to enterprise customers for a while. And we certainly have enterprise customers who are running multiple sites and applications on top of a single instance of Webiny. But we're very soon going to be releasing an update to multi-tenancy v2, where we're going to make the management of tenants much easier than what it is today. So we're going to be offering new capabilities in the admin panel for people to create tenants. And we're also going to be adding the ability for people to add custom fully qualified domains to each and every tenant. If you think about those use cases of people running multi-tenancy, there will be either SaaSes or customers running multiple websites, certainly with their own vanity domains, and being able to route the traffic for those domains to the appropriate tenants is mandatory. So we're bringing that capability, and also the ability for people to theme each and every tenant separately, which is something that today is not possible in the product, but will be very shortly, talking about end of the year. So multi-tenancy has been an enterprise feature, but I have an asterisk there because I'm going to come to that in a few minutes. Kind of share the good news that we're going to be making that more accessible to everyone, not just people who are willing to pay many thousands of dollars per year, but also folks who want to leverage multi-tenancy at a smaller scale. We're going to making that available to more people, and I'll come to that in a few minutes. Another thing that we're just wrapping up, or actually it's been done already, it's the integration with Okta as an external third-party identity provider. I mean, that's made us kind of refactor, I would say more than that, kind of a big overhaul of our security layer to separate identities to users. We could certainly go into a lot of detail there, but if you think about people, big enterprises that are running their own identity systems, they have their own data privacy and compliance requirements. Certainly with things like GDPR, they want the data to be managed and localized in a certain way. And having just users in the Webiny system is a valid concern to those customers. So, and that's kind of what the Okta integration allows us to do, is to delegate the authentication and a lot of the authorization of what those users can do on the Webiny platform to that third-party IDP, in this case, Okta. So that's already available to enterprise customers, and we have customers already using that feature. The next one, which is, I think it's going to be a big announcement, and you guys are certainly hearing this for the first time. We're going to be launching a new product called Webiny Control Panel. This product is going to be accompanying the headless CMS, the page builder, what you have today. We're going to share more details on how that's going to look like. But this is going to become our one-stop shop for customers to more easily get up and running with Webiny, to be able to choose the package. And so coming back to unlocking enterprise features like multi-tenancy, Webiny Control Panel is going to be the vehicle for us to be offering you guys the ability to choose enterprise features without perhaps having to go into the bigger commitment of signing a contract that gives you SLA-based support and the things that kind of put you more on the enterprise side of the scale. So Webiny Control Panel is going to unlock self-serviceable packaging of the Webiny product with more features than what you get today with open source. But that's just one of the things that we're going to do. WCP is also going to be giving you the ability to monitor the cost and performance of your Webiny projects, which today is incredibly hard. Certainly when it comes to the cost, well, both equally hard, right? If you're running hundreds of projects in AWS, good luck finding out how much that's costing you, because the cost is spread all over the place. Multiple accounts, multiple services. And if you have a large organization, that just gets more complicated. The same thing applies to the performance, because if you think about it, now you got Webiny and all of your functional requirements are being met, you're going to be thinking about more of the non-functional requirements, like how much is this costing me? Am I being profitable? And what is the performance of what is the performance of my applications? So Webiny Control Panel is going to be consolidating all of that data in a single portal for you to be monitoring those things, as well as look at things like aggregating your deployment logs, or logs of what's going on with your projects, create alerts, manage the team that's collaborating in particular project. So it's again going to be this one-stop shop for onboarding, monitoring, and managing everything Webiny related. And we want it to be the first place where everyone goes to start with Webiny, and then to kind of to get the most value out of their Webiny experience. And it's again through that mechanism, WCP and self-serviceable packaging and pricing, that we're going to be letting more people use enterprise features like multi-tenancy, because we know that a lot of people are keen to get onto that. I'll move on quickly to what's coming next. Next means through 2022, some of the things coming pretty early, Q1 next year. Dynamic Pages is probably the one I've been hearing the most about, talking to everyone in the community and enterprise customers. So this is, today with Page Builder, you can build, quite rich websites end to end. Define the menu, define the multiple pages, the SEO, build all of the pages with the page builder tool that we provide, but it's all static content today. And then we kind of have the headless CMS, which is also incredibly powerful, sitting on the side. We're going to be bringing kind of those two spheres together, and we're going to let people, without having to write a single line of code, to build those engaging sites that are a mix of static and dynamic content, stuff that lives in the headless CMS, in your models, and stuff that is still statically defined, because some of those things will always be like that. There's a lot of work for us to do from an engineering perspective on optimizing how do we ensure that performance and SEO continue to be kind of paramount to how we think about serving those pages. So we certainly have really good ideas about how we're going to be rendering all of those things. What happens when you update the layout and you have hundreds of pages that are, hundreds of pages because you have hundreds of product items in your catalog that use that layout. What do you do in terms of kind of pre-rendering all of those pages, or maybe not, maybe kind of optimize the way that those things are done. So there's a lot of work that's going to go into that to make it continue to be performant and SEO friendly. We're also going to be integrating with Figma. We do have some best practices today on how that can be done, but we're only going to make it easier to really kind of facilitate that workflow from content creation all the way through to give me my React components, drop them into Page Builder, and off I go. So I'm super excited about this one. I think it's just, it fills a massive gap today in the space in general, not just our product, but there's not many products out there that do this. Certainly not products that are serverless and self-hosted and open source. So I spoke about WCP as just the milestones for you guys to kind of have in the back of your mind. We're going to be releasing WCP in an alpha limited availability type of capacity end of this year. We'll be sharing more information about how you guys can be part of the alpha program. And then we're going to be running the alpha all the way through Q1 next year until we release beta. And beta is going to have more features, and certainly we're going to make it more available to people directly on the website. Advanced publishing workflow, that's another thing that we're going to be working next. We've started already working on that, going to be releasing that to enterprise and non-enterprise customers as well, as we kind of bring the new self-serviceable packaging and pricing to people. People will have the option to choose the advanced publishing workflow as an add-on as well. So that's the thing that's going to give people the ability to customize, create through a workflow editor to define approval rules, sort of as a state machine, so that whenever I push this page out, this has to be approved by legal, then has to be approved by compliance and whatnot. And until those steps are kind of completed, the page can't be published. So bringing that level of compliance and the checks and collaboration as well, because we're going to be introducing new tools as part of APW for people to be commenting on changes. Think of user back, those types of tools. So I'm working on an update to a page. I want people to comment on that. I can start a commenting action that's going to get people to provide feedback on my page and interact in a better way. So that's all coming again beginning of next year. In the latest section, we've got two things which are kind of self-explanatory and will only be possible because of the great work that we did on the storage operations, as Pavel explained earlier. It's kind of the decoupling of the, the kind of building a more flexible but more optimized way of using third-party storage systems. It's bigger than that, because launching Webiny on Azure is not just making sure that it works with Cosmos, the equivalent of DynamoDB there. There's just a lot more things that we need to think about. But that's what you're going to see sometime through 2022. We're going to be launching on Azure, and then we want to be launching on GCP as well. And then, I mean, as a product person, nothing's going to make me happier than say, Webiny is open source, self-hosted, serverless, and multi-cloud. That's going to be a fantastic proposition. And so, I mean, this is really exciting roadmap. As I said, Tim's has done a phenomenal job, but once we've done all of these things, the product is just going to be 10 times, 100 times better than what it already is today. So I'm super excited about this roadmap and to get your feedback on it and to hear from you guys whether this is where we should be going as a product and if we're thinking about these things the right way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pedro, for the great details and the vision. So we have a question from Bill. Bill, if you want, you can definitely unmute yourself and ask the questions. Like, okay, the question is like, what are the thoughts on analytics in terms of users and marketing standpoint?
I'll take that one, Bill. It's just my bad that I didn't include analytics in there because that's also going to be part of WCP. We don't have an aspiration of making WCP when it comes to analytics compete with Google Analytics or Pendo or those types of products, but we're certainly going to be giving you a lot of information about page visits and where users are coming from, alongside the performance and the cost. Those things need to be looked at. It's kind of in that triangle of the usage, the performance, and the cost, and we're going to be adding analytics around the usage of the product as well. So my bad that I didn't include that in the slide.
Thanks.
Guys, just one note to complete the picture about the Webiny control panel. It's really important to emphasize that it's not a SaaS in traditional term. It's still your self-hosted version of Webiny, which you will be deploying into your own cloud accounts. So it's not like we're building a SaaS version where you will be creating and you will have to pay to use it. You will still be deploying it into your own accounts and controlling all the source code, all the customizations. Webiny control panel will just give you those extra insights and management capabilities and unlock those extra features that we are building. So you can just pull those into your self-hosted version of Webiny and deploy into your own cloud.
Yeah, thanks for that, Pavel, for making that clear. So as I said at the beginning, WCP is going to sit alongside the CMS, if you want, that you guys have been using today. Nothing changes from that perspective. You deploy, you customize, you program Webiny the same way as before. But if you want to use WCP, you will allow us to collect some information, because think about it. If you want us to be aggregating cost, performance, and usage data, we need to be pulling that data from somewhere. So there will be an ask, and WCP is not going to be mandatory, but we do want to make it so compelling that everyone's going to be using it. And there's going to be things about PII and all GDPR stuff, but there will be a bit of data that we will ask you to send us from your self-hosted instance of Webiny, so that we can then aggregate that data and make it available in WCP for you guys to manage, monitor, and do all of the things that I mentioned earlier. I think Ben has a question.
The question really, but I just think it's amazing. I think that's a really killer feature, and I love the idea of it. Really looking forward to seeing what this looks like and how we can use it. It's great. Just the cost thing, you know, that's such a challenge when it comes to serverless, like understanding how much something is costing you. So that's just brilliant. Really love it.
Awesome. Good to hear that.
So we have a question from Shub also on chat. So Pedro, if you can have a look, or maybe.
So I'm just going to read the question. So Shub is saying, in his opinion, if an analytics layer comes with hooks, then it'll be quick and easy to integrate with any analytics like Google Analytics, Fathom, Plausible, and more. Okay.
I mean, if you go that way, then you don't have to wait for Webiny control panel. You can do it today.
Yeah, and you can do it today. That's the thing. Yeah, yeah. Is that where you're going, Shub? I don't know if you want to kind of unmute yourself or. Maybe you can't unmute yourself, which is also okay. Fair. Is
No worries.
He or she is outside. Okay.
Yeah, just wanted to drop another addition on our plans for multi-cloud. So you can now see how our storage operations will enable us to move to other clouds, because usually you have to pick, right? People write the software based on DynamoDB-only, and then how do you move to another cloud? You don't. You are locked into AWS. If you're starting on Azure and you want something to work on GCP, how do you move that? You don't. But with our approach to storage, we can move our business logic anywhere, and we will just adapt the storage layer. So if you want, you can have File Manager hosted on AWS, but have your page builder running on Azure at the same time, right? And when you spin up your admin app, it will still be working with the same GraphQL API, but each part of that API will be pulling data from a different cloud, a different service, whatever you want it to be. It can be Firebase, literally any storage you can imagine. So that will allow us to move to multiple clouds.
Cool. So great. Thank you for the answers, team. So, if you have any question on the roadmap, you can definitely ask on chat or unmute yourself and ask here. If not, we'll do a quick poll, and we will, after that we have the question answer session. You can ask anything related to serverless or Webiny. Cool. So so this moves me to the next section of our call is question answer. Share your feedback, ideas, thought, anything which you would like to share with us. So it's an open forum. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions, or if you have anything, you can use chat as well. So I will be happy to hear from you.
It doesn't have to be a question. You can just comment on what you're building with Webiny. Like, what are you using Webiny for? That would also be cool. Yeah. Go ahead, Ben. Just unmute yourself.
Okay. So I really like the features you're bringing to this to make it like a more mature CMS platform as well. I'm just wondering if anything's on the roadmap about a plugin ecosystem. So what would, I've seen with other CMSs is that allows third parties to create functionality for Webiny that then they can also plug into the applications you've got. I wonder if that's something that you've considered.
I'll take.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Pedro. If you're.
I'll take the product. I'll take the product side of the question, and then I'll let you comment on the engineering side. Yes. I mean, not really reinventing the wheel here, as you said, Ben. It's a known space. It's a known quantity in terms of how people provide those solutions through marketplaces, and eventually make it a mechanism for people to monetize their own work by selling the plugins in such marketplace types of places. That's more of an idea right now, and other than things that we have committed to deliver, certainly to 2022. I mean, we have a very rigorous process when it comes to prioritizing work and looking at the value that we're going to deliver to users and whatnot. So we believe that the things that are in the 2022 roadmap for now are going to kind of give us the biggest bang for the buck, but we're going to be doing some things around unlocking those capabilities before we get to, hey, this is the marketplace, this is properly done. Swapnil is actually working on something that he will be able to share in the next few weeks. It's going to be more of an experiment and of kind of a version 0.1 of such a marketplace type of a capability, but we're going to be more vocal and going to be working more with the community to source all of the things that people have built with Webiny, like all of those plugins. I get a lot of, hey, I want to build my e-commerce business on top of Webiny, but surely someone has already built a plugin that integrates with Stripe for things like payments and whatnot. Let's source that from the community and let's make it available. So we're going to create a bit of a process very soon where those things are going to be easier for people to share, but it's not going to be the kind of the type of a marketplace yet. But it's certainly a step in the right direction in my view, and we'll see if what we get out of it, right, and if it works for people.
Awesome, thanks. That sounds interesting.
Go ahead.
I mean, even now, like every feature you see in the system is built using a plugin. It's not like Webiny core is a monolith, and then you guys need a special plugin API to develop something. All of our functionality is developed using our own plugins. They may not be the easiest to develop or are definitely lacking docs, but they are there, right? You can already today, if you just do a little bit of digging through individual applications that we have, you will find all the plugins that make up all the functionality of every feature, be it a React component or an API, I don't know, a GraphQL schema or an Elasticsearch modifier to store data. Like it's all already in form of plugins. We are constantly working on making it easier to add stuff and to add extensions. And that's one of the reasons why that second question in the poll was there. We do get lots of like, I know it's pluginable, but I'm confused, right? That's what we want to improve. That's why that question was there, and we are constantly working on improving the public like API and SDKs and everything. So at some point, it will become a lot more obvious and easy to develop stuff. But it's already there. It's already pluginable.
Cool. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Your constant support and love to the project really appreciate it, and that help us keep going. Thank you so much, Pavel and Pedro, for sharing in time and sharing the insight with us, and everyone for joining. Have a good day or evening ahead, and see you in the next community call. And if you have anything for us, any feedback, questions, feel free to use our Slack channel, and we'll be more than happy to assist and guide you there. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.